What makes a British film truly great? Is it the craft, the courage, or the quiet confidence to break every rule right when the world expects politeness? British cinema has a way of sneaking up on you, using charm to disguise its ambition and small budgets to hide massive ideas. And as we count down these 12 titles, there is one film near the top that quietly rewired the way modern movies work without ever raising its voice. Number 12, The Lady Killers, 1955. The Lady Killers begins like a gentle comedy you might catch on a Sunday afternoon. But underneath that polite surface sits one of the sharpest tonal tricks in British cinema. Ealing Studios was known for soft humor and warm characters, yet this film decides to walk right up to the line where politeness starts to tremble. At the center is Alec Guinness, almost unrecognizable, wearing a wide grin that never quite reaches the eyes. His character arrives at the boarding house with a story that sounds harmless, but every detail feels just slightly off, like wallpaper peeling behind an antique frame. The real magic comes from how the production creates tension without raising its voice. The house is tiny, creaky, and full of corners where secrets hide. The crew constructed its strange angles and narrow corridors to feel like a maze that traps anyone who enters. The older landlady, played with gentle strength by Katie Johnson, steals the film simply by refusing to notice the danger gathering around her. What should have been straightforward humor becomes something stranger and far more memorable. By the end, The Lady Killers feels like the moment Ealing Studios decided that mischief could be elegant. It still plays today with the same odd charm, proving that small spaces can hold very big ideas. Number 11, This Sporting Life, 1963. This Sporting Life enters the new wave of British realism with fists already clenched. Director Lindsay Anderson was not interested in polished heroes or cheerful triumph. Instead, he chose a world of grit, cold mornings, and dreams that scrape against reality. Richard Harris delivers one of his boldest performances as a rugby player, whose strength in the game never quite solves the weight he carries in his everyday life. The story is built around emotional truth rather than tidy moments, and that truth can feel heavy. The production avoided studio gloss and instead shot in real neighborhoods, real locker rooms, and real weather. Anderson wanted the audience to sense the same chill the characters feel, the same mud clinging to their boots. Many scenes were filmed with handheld cameras, giving the world a restless energy that mirrors the main character's frustration. The sound design is just as honest. Conversations overlap, arguments flare without warning, and silence stretches long enough to make you shift in your seat. This Sporting Life helped redefine what British cinema could show. The lead character is not softened or smoothed out. He is raw and sometimes difficult, but always human. The film's willingness to sit with discomfort paved the way for future dramas that explored working-class lives without filters. It is a film that respects the audience enough to show the truth, even when the truth feels heavy. Number 10, A Matter of Life and Death, 1946. A Matter of Life and Death opens with one of the most striking transitions in British film. Earth is in warm technicolor, full of movement and breath, while the afterlife is presented in still, quiet shades that look almost carved from light. Powell and Pressburger refuse to separate fantasy and reality with simple tricks. Instead, they let the colors, camera moves, and shifting spaces guide you through a story that feels both cosmic and intimate. David Niven leads with a calm presence, playing a pilot facing something larger than himself. The film uses his journey to ask questions about choices, chance, and connection. Yet nothing about the production relied on spectacle for spectacle's sake. The famous staircase scene was built full scale, a gigantic rotating structure operated by a small army of technicians. It became one of the most ambitious sets in British cinema at the time. The dialogue balances charm and honesty, never pushing too hard on emotion, but letting it rise naturally. The film was released shortly after the war, and audiences connected deeply with its desire for hope without pretending the past had been simple. A Matter of Life and Death still feels modern because it never tries to impress with size alone. It invites you to step into a different space and trust the story to lead the way. Few films blend imagination and sincerity with this much skill. Number 9, If, 1968. If arrives with a boldness that does not bother to ask permission. Lindsay Anderson stepped into the closed world of British boarding schools and revealed the tension underneath the uniforms, routines, and polished surfaces. The film follows a group of students who feel the weight of tradition pressing down on them until rebellion becomes the only language left. It is not loud rebellion. It is slow, simmering frustration that finally snaps into something unforgettable. One of the most distinctive choices Anderson made was to switch between color and black and white without explanation. Some scenes were shot this way because of technical limitations, but he embraced the effect, using it to create a dreamlike, unpredictable rhythm. Malcolm McDowell, in his film debut, gives the story its electric center. His performance balances charm, defiance, and vulnerability in a way that carries the entire film. The school itself becomes a character. Long hallways, strict ceremonies, and orderly rows all serve as visual reminders of a system that values control above growth. The production filmed on a real campus, capturing not just architecture, but the atmosphere of a place built to shape young minds. If made audiences sit up because it dared to question institutions usually treated as untouchable. Its influence can be seen in decades of films that explore authority, tradition, and the quiet pressure that builds when a voice is ignored. It remains a daring piece of cinema that still sparks conversation. Number 8. Withnail and I, 1987. Withnail and I is the rare film that becomes more beloved every year, not because of nostalgia, but because its sharp humor and melancholy feel timeless. On the surface, it is a simple story about two struggling actors escaping the city for a break in the countryside. In reality, it is a portrait of friendship, frustration, and the strange comfort of failure. Richard E. Grant delivers an unforgettable performance as Withnail, a character full of big words, bold energy, and absolutely no practical skills. His timing, expressions, and sudden bursts of confidence make every scene feel alive. Writer-director Bruce Robinson based much of the script on his own experiences, which gives the dialogue a rhythm that feels both theatrical and spontaneous. Many lines have become iconic because they capture a kind of honesty you rarely hear spoken out loud. The countryside setting, quiet and damp, becomes the perfect contrast to the character's chaotic energy. The production leaned into natural lighting and real weather, allowing the world to feel as unpredictable as the characters themselves. What makes the film truly special is its warmth. Even in moments of frustration or absurdity, the story holds genuine affection for its characters. Withnail and I is not about success. It is about the strange beauty of trying, failing, and still finding someone who stands beside you through it all. Number 7. Black Narcissus, 1947. Black Narcissus is one of those films that looks serene at first glance, then quietly tightens its grip with every scene. Powell and Pressburger took a simple premise, a group of women running a school in the Himalayas, and transformed it into a psychological storm unfolding behind calm expressions. The mountain setting was never filmed on location. Instead, the team built elaborate sets at Pinewood Studios and relied on matte paintings to extend the world beyond the frame. The result is so convincing that viewers still assume the cast climbed cliffs to make the film. Jack Cardiff's cinematography pushes color and shadow into a new kind of storytelling. Soft light turns sharp without warning. Calm faces shift under sudden bursts of bright tones. You can almost feel the altitude pressing down on the characters. The wind machines, hidden lights, and layered textures create an atmosphere that feels too quiet to be safe. At its heart, this is a story about isolation. The higher the altitude, the thinner the line between order and emotion. Deborah Kerr anchors the story, with a performance built on control, slowly slipping through her fingers. Every gesture matters. Every glance hints at something deeper. Black Narcissus remains a masterclass in tension, created not with action, but with mood, color, and the psychology of a place that feels alive. It is the kind of film that proves style is not decoration. Style can be the story. Number 6. The Long Good Friday, 1980. The Long Good Friday takes a familiar idea, a man confident in his world, and watches what happens when every piece of that world shifts at once. Director John Mackenzie shaped the film like a pressure cooker, keeping the heat low at first before letting the story boil over. At the center is Bob Hoskins, delivering one of the most commanding performances in British cinema. His character, Harold Shand, strides through London with absolute certainty. Then the ground begins to move beneath his feet. The film captures a city on the edge of change. London in the late 1970s and early 1980s was full of new buildings rising beside old docks, ambition competing with uncertainty. Mackenzie chose real locations, letting the cranes, warehouses, and waterfront create an unpolished electric backdrop. Helen Mirren balances Hoskins with calm intelligence, shaping their scenes into a duel of charm and strategy. The pacing is remarkable. Dialogue scenes crackle with tension, even when no one raises their voice. The camera lingers just long enough to let you feel the pressure tightening around the characters. By the end, the story becomes a portrait of someone confronting forces larger than he ever believed possible. The Long Good Friday remains a milestone, because it understands that suspense does not always come from action. Sometimes it comes from watching confidence turn into realization, moment by moment, until the silence feels louder than anything else. Number 5. Kes, 1969. Kes doesn't rely on polished dialogue or grand moments. Instead, it finds power in everyday life, using a single boy and a bird to show how fragile hope can be. Ken Loach wasn't interested in actors who already knew how to pose for a camera. He wanted someone who looked like he belonged in the world he was filming. David Bradley, chosen from a local school, brought an honesty that no training could match. His bond with the kestrel is real, created through months of learning, practicing, and standing in fields long before the first shot was taken. The production made a conscious choice to use natural light, natural sound, and real locations. The classrooms, homes, and hillsides are not polished for the camera. They are presented as they truly are, with shadows, imperfections, and the quiet ache of a community that works hard just to stay afloat. Even the humor in the film lands differently. It is the humor of people who find ways to smile despite the weight of their daily routines. Kes influenced filmmakers around the world because it trusts the small details. It understands that a simple gesture can hold more emotion than a long speech. The bird becomes a symbol of the freedom the boy longs for, even if the world around him refuses to open its doors. The film remains one of the most heartfelt stories in British cinema. Number 4. Don't Look Now, 1973. Don't Look Now acts like a memory you're trying to piece together, rather than a traditional thriller. Nicholas Roeg designed every edit, every color cue, and every quiet moment to keep you leaning forward, searching for meaning. The film follows a couple grieving a loss, and their emotional wounds color everything they see in Venice. This is not the Venice of travel guides. Rogue waited for fog, empty streets, and pale light to turn the city into a maze of echoes and second guesses. The production kept the cast in natural conditions. Filming in cold weather meant the actors' shivers, breath, and fatigue were genuine. Roeg wanted realism not through big effects, but through the way people actually look when they are tired, scared, or trying to hold themselves together. The recurring use of red is one of the movie's most famous techniques. It is not just a color. It becomes a signal, a clue, a warning that never quite resolves until the final moments. What sets Don't Look Now apart is its editing style. Scenes connect through emotion rather than simple chronology, creating a rhythm that feels unsettling but deeply human. The story becomes a reflection of grief itself, unpredictable and full of moments that make you question what you just saw. Decades later, filmmakers still study this movie to understand how to build tension without relying on shocks. It is a masterpiece of mood and memory. Number 3. The Red Shoes, 1948. The Red Shoes is a film about artists pushed to the point where dedication becomes something larger and more demanding than anyone expected. Powell and Pressburger crafted a world where music, color, and movement tell the story as clearly as dialogue. The central ballet sequence, running nearly 20 minutes, abandons realism entirely and dives straight into the character's imagination. Painted skies, shifting sets, and dreamlike spaces turn performance into emotion. Jack Cardiff's use of Technicolor is legendary. He approached the camera as a painter approaches a canvas, using bold contrasts to guide your eye and shape your feelings. The reds flare against cooler backgrounds, creating a sense that the world itself is responding to the character's inner turmoil. Every frame feels intentional, alive, and full of detail. The film explores the cost of ambition without preaching. It respects the intensity of artists who give everything to their craft. The lead performances carry this weight beautifully, showing the thrill of creation and the strain that follows. The studio initially expected a graceful story. Instead, they received something darker, sharper, and far more personal. The Red Shoes continues to inspire. Ease directors, dancers, designers, and anyone who has ever chased a dream. It proves that cinema can turn emotion into spectacle, and spectacle into something deeply human. Few films blend beauty and tension with this much confidence. Number 2. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. Lawrence of Arabia is more than a historical epic. It is a character study stretched across deserts so vast they seem designed to test the limits of both man and camera. David Lean approached the story with precision, choosing real desert locations and hauling equipment across miles of shifting sand. The heat affected the film stock, the crew, and the actors, but Lean believed authenticity required pushing past comfort. The result is a world that feels immediate, not imagined. Peter O'Toole delivers a performance that shifts as subtly as the dunes around him. His eyes, bright and determined at the start, gradually reflect the weight of the journey. Lean uses the widescreen frame, not just to impress, but to show how small even the strongest figure can appear beside nature. The match cut from a flame to the rising sun remains one of cinema's most studied transitions, skipping hours in a single gesture. The film avoids easy answers. Instead, it lets complexity build through quiet moments, close-ups, and stretches of silence. It was a turning point in what large-scale storytelling could look like, and remains a benchmark for filmmakers who want to blend spectacle with introspection. Lawrence of Arabia endures because it understands that the greatest journeys are not measured in distance, but in how a person changes along the way. Number 1. The Third Man, 1949. The Third Man is where British cinema stopped playing safe and stepped into shadows that felt real, cold, and unpredictable. Carol Reed rejected the idea of building neat studio sets and shot in the shattered streets of post-war Vienna. Rubble, broken staircases, and wet cobblestones became essential to the film's tone. At night, the fire service soaked the streets so reflections could bend the lights into strange shapes. The city becomes a living presence, guiding the story as much as any character. Robert Krasker's tilted camera angles signal that something is wrong long before the characters realize it. Nothing is centered, nothing sits comfortably in the frame. And then there is the zither score, a simple plucked melody that should sound cheerful, but instead makes the entire story feel uncertain. It was an unusual choice, yet it became one of the most recognizable sounds in film history. Orson Welles changes the energy of the movie the moment he appears. His charm, timing, and effortless confidence add layers that the script alone could never accomplish. His improvised speech about history and creativity remains iconic. The Third Man holds its place as a masterpiece because it trusts atmosphere over explanation. It ends without comfort, choosing honesty over neatness. It is a film that shaped modern noir and proved that darkness can be elegant, thoughtful, and unforgettable. British cinema has always carried a quiet confidence, the kind that lets bold ideas hide inside modest budgets and simple settings. These 12 films prove that greatness is not about scale, but vision. If one title today surprised you, or made you rethink what British films can be, then the list has done its work. Tell me which one you want to watch first. Share this with someone who loves classic cinema, and subscribe for more countdowns that reshape your watch list.